Just looked at some nonfiction. By just, I mean like 30 hours ago. This last shelf in this larger case here, the smaller nonfiction case. A book of maps. You know, it says high school free pile all over it. But it's good to have stuff like this. Now this book, elegant. Reminds me of a Dylan album. That album just Dylan in the 70s. Huh. Ephemera is so interesting. It's a port key. I've really had profound, freaky experiences with ephemera. One time, a friend had bought an 1860s wooden music toy. It was like a little dancing racist doll that you like worked a pedal and it would dance. So, I felt the collapse of time immediately with that thing. Another time, an antique mall had a beaver cookie jar from like the early 1800s, and I was like, oh my God. It's like radiating this other time. Some objects can like barely be dragged into the present. They're so of the past. Books are a nice, portable, concise way of having such objects. I feel like my bookcases are full of surprises. And sometimes the surprise is the collapse of time. Not to mention with the contents of the books. Like, I really have had profound experiences reading Sappho's poems. I feel like 2,000 years went away. This book looks beautiful. Don't love a staple binding, but I do love a booklet. What a paradox. No, staple bindings are fine. I guess I do prefer, like, a nice paperback binding. Oh, Copan. This was this amazing Guatemalan ruin that I went to with my first wife when we were in Guatemala. Considered in ancient times as a major cultural center of the Mayan people, Copan is today the subject of great scientific and tourist interest in America and the world at large. It's incredible. There's trees growing on it that are like 1,000 years old. And, it's just amazing. The big one in Guatemala is Tikal. I don't think I ever went to Tikal. In a part of the country I didn't really see. But Copan was amazing. Wow, was it ever? Just ancient stone pyramids. The most incredible carvings and architecture. These trees that were so huge growing over everything. Their roots just like covering the whole stairwells. Like, that tree's got to be 1,000 years old, for sure. I think it's got some drawings of the layout. That was a thing to experience. Memory's so weird because it's so erratic. You remember something so much and something so little. And you're like, man, why don't I think about that more? I think this should be in the memoir section, honestly. This is Edward O. Wilson's memoir, Naturalist. Yep. Getting moved. It's a nice thing about this project is getting things really organized. The collection's going to be like tight, you know, when it's done. Make it tight, bro. Looks super sweet, you know. Just pretty rad all around. Hard to do that satire because I'm not that far from that. Noam Chomsky, Objectivity and Liberal Scholarship. Good, I hope this is examining the left. Because I don't know. The left is often quite disappointing. Like, are you just an opposition party playing a role? Then again, who knows what sense he means liberal in here. It could mean just like Western. Oh, this is about Vietnam, apparently. I'm like, how could I get rid of this book ever during the purge? What? I think it was books like this that made me think, like, I can't get rid of all my books. At one point, I was like, I'm just going to get rid of all my books. Just get rid of all of them. I was moving. There's a certain psychic lightning that happens when you get rid of stuff. I don't want to be a materialist or a fetishist, but I mean, the book collection was huge. It was 11,000 books. Now it's only probably 3,000, maybe 4,000 books. It's painful on many levels, and I've noticed some missing books in every section. But I've only noticed like a few books in every section. The sci-fi section was particularly decimated, but, well, you know, comes and goes. That's a book collection. Like grains of sand with the ocean. Like that Leonard Cohen lyric. Contact photo book of the world. Where'd this come from? A magical old man gave it to me in a wood. No. $3 maybe? I don't know. I could see paying for that. It's really solid too. It's got this nice, like, thick page feel. It's called This is Rome. A contact photo book of the world from Harry and Abrams, Incorporated, New York. At one point it was sold for $1 with a neat sticker. Later, it was sold for 15 cents. Which that's weird. That's a weird price to put on that. Like in any era. I don't know if I can find a date easy on it. I don't know if there's a date anywhere on it, but I would say 50s. Maybe 60s. Could be 70s, but I think 50s. Rise of Universities. I've always meant to read this. I've written one big college chapter, a book-length college chapter about my first year at college. And I plan to write another one for book 2 of my book about all the rest of my college experience. But it'll be interesting because I'm going to take a lot. I'm going to keep the page count exactly the same as the other college chapter, but it's going to cover many years, both undergrad and grad years. It'll be a very different account than the first year. But yeah, I think it'll be quite lively packing all that into a short space, like 230 pages. My reading life and my writing life are completely entwined. I'm sorry. It's hard not to talk about my work sometimes. I'm looking at books. I just recorded a podcast episode with my friend Ty. This is blurry. Here we go. Yeah, where do universities come from? Often from a religious source, right? Monasteries and whatnot. Will read. Want to read. Check this out. Caligula. Huh. I've talked to someone that saw that movie Caligula, and he said it's pretty crazy. It was like an attempt at doing like a total like pornographic film within a mainstream release. It's unique because you have to be over the top to talk about Caligula because this guy was like apparently Mr. Excess, depravity, etc. However, that's been debated. I've also heard because history is written by the winners, and Caligula lost, and history was written after him. So, I don't know. I bet a lot of it's true. Who knows? It's kind of a cool looking book. I can see why the Amish are all make no graven images, because images are kind of creepy sometimes. I'm like, yeah, book cover, stop looking at me. Why must you look at me? Anyway, I'm not frightened of the book cover. How would you think that? Last Days of Pompeii. This is a subject I'm very interested in. I feel like I looked at this in a video one time. Oh, maybe I got it from a free box. I think I did. Is this a recent one? Maybe. Sir Edward G.E. Bulwer-Lytton. That name came up recently. Oh, my friend Danny wants to start a writing podcast and call it The Pen and the Sword. And I think this is the guy who said the pen is mightier than the sword. Weird. We're in the Matrix and it's running out of variables, repeating itself a lot. No. But it does sometimes feel like your life is just being written all the time. Look at this beautiful book. Chinese Proverbs from Olden Times. Hardcover. It's unfaded along the spine. Beautiful. Man, this book looks great. Seeking fish, don't dive in the pond. Go home and get a net. Clay Buddha scorns mud Buddha. You seek a jewel of a woman, look in books. The emperor errs, the peasant shivers. To know the road ahead, ask those coming back. Proverbs. I don't know much about this book, except I think it's famous. The Revolt of the Masses. Jose Ortega y Gasset. Oh, philosophy, political science. What Rousseau's Contrat Social was for the 18th century and Karl Marx's Das Kapital was for the 19th. Senor Ortega's Revolt of the Masses should be for the 20th century. Whoa. Oh, interesting. Social upheaval. Continuously imprints since 1932. Okay. An analysis of Western culture. Written by a guy, 1883 to 1955. Okay. Norton, where do you not go? I'm apparently more interested in getting books about walking and reading about walking than I am in actually reading about it, because I've acquired several of these books, but not read all of them. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm actually more interested in walking than in reading about walking. But it is cool to read about things you're interested in. And walking, I feel like, is a primeval human activity. It's at the core of who we are. I mean, think about our ancestors coming down from the trees, and when they began walking bipedally, that increased the blood flow to their brains, and, made them more intelligent, brought our consciousness to a new, seemingly higher awareness. And, walking brought us that. I feel like walking is the ultimate creative act, and it's the act that created us. I walked across the country, and it became a profound meditation after a while. I went insane, and I never came back, oh no. Yeah, no, walking around is pretty cool, man. My friend John Gillette, who was on that haiku, always was playing a little backpacking guitar. I mean, cinna-freaking-matic. What a scene, man. He would always say, I'm a member of the Church of Walking Around and Looking at Stuff. Love it. Yeah, walking and writing, those are good things. I used to make these special little notebooks. I would just turn notebooks into wallets, basically. I would make like duct tape loops on them for pens and have a little pouch inside. And that way I'd always have a notebook and a pen on me, and I was always writing down ideas. I've got a giant box around here somewhere. I just tried to find it and failed. It's in my closet somewhere. I thought, you know what? Don't get hung up on a side quest. Be a hero, Mike. I don't know if that quote's relevant here. But walking around and looking at stuff's pretty cool. I got some highfalutin ideas about it all. I think it's pretty core and key to who we are. And I am a wandering sort. People that believe in reflexology, which I think is probably pseudoscience, think that you stimulate the ends of your feet, and that leads directly to creative channels to your brain. I'm like, that's cool, but apparently that stuff's been debunked. I don't know. Montaigne, riding in his tower with his cats, while France burned below. His fun little stories. Affection of fathers for their children. He was preserving humanity. He was writing about what's it feel like to be human. What do we think about things? On friendship, measuring truth and error, the education of children. On liars. I just get every edition of Montaigne because that'll trick me into reading him one day. I do want to read him. He's cool. I do. I want to read Montaigne. I've read some Montaigne. He's very interesting. Invented the essay. I mean, that's so cool. What Americans really think about economic inequality, class war. Cool. Where do I get this stuff? Political science. Man, I hope there's not ever like a rounding up dissenters and killing them era in this country, because I definitely have a lot of books that would like put me on lists. Probably. This is probably a pro-revolutionary book, and I have a few of those. What I'm really pro is leave me alone to write and read. I don't want to have dumb wars, you idiots. No, I'm not talking to revolutionaries, because sometimes you got to do that to right or wrong, Like, I love what Mark Twain wrote about the terror. He's like, there was the short terror, which everyone knows about, the terror. There was also the long terror, the many years before that. It was inflicted on the poor. It's so interesting to see people cheering on that shooter of that CEO. Crazy. New era. On one level, I'm like, wow, that's like a sign of real potential for change and power to the people, et cetera, et cetera. On another, I think, man, I think humanity has like hardened over the last decade or so. We've gotten a little meaner. I don't know. I've been trying to be like really positive lately. I don't know why. Survival tactic, I guess. But it's kind of helping me. I remember when I was really down after my first marriage, a woman in a park told me, you should keep a gratitude journal. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I did, and it actually really helped me. Weird. Oh, this looks good. A history of the Arab peoples. Yeah, I want to understand the world. I want to know about it all. I really would like to be like someone that kind of knows a little bit about everything, that can talk about anything. I think right now I'm at the point where I can like fake my way through talking about anything, or like I could quickly divert it to some adjacent topic, but I can't really, like, my messages were, look over there. But this looks good. I'll have a big work about an important topic, and having an understanding afterward. That book, The Two Koreas, made me feel that way about the subject of Korea. It was like, yeah. Hey, speaking of every edition of Montaigne, here's a nice hardcover. Volume 25 of Britannica's Great Books. Hey, it's beautiful. Back in the day, I think this is what they used to call a handsome volume. That's what the kids on the street called it. Cool. Montaigne. Yeah, one of these days I'll get all the Montaigne together. In fact, Montaigne could maybe get a shelf. Yes. I'm thinking about getting rid of all my CDs because I don't have a CD player. I'll save enough to fill a plastic case that I'll get for the wall. And a small stereo eventually. But I'll move it out of that shelf and I'll put nonfiction single authors there. Montaigne, you're going to go over there. And last, Inside 9/11, What Really Happened. This is not like a 9/11 truther book or anything like that. It's like just a genuine exegesis of the day. And it all went down. I had this really cool idea for a novel that would have combined unnamed, but something influenced by Navajo early cosmology, the idea of the holy people, and 9/11 and Romeo and Juliet. And Greek mythology. I had this really wild premise that basically, how would I describe it? The way I saw it, it didn't seem tacky. It was kind of interesting, I think. The idea would have been that at their smallest level, everything is alive, and that in ancient times, at the smallest level, there were all these different identities, and they moved between identities. And in some of the mythologies of the world, for instance, Navajo holy people mythology, you hear the people used to change forms all the time, and then eventually things solidified, and people were stuck in the forms they had. But people would move between the things. They'd be rock holy people, or plant holy people, or animal holy people, whatever. And the Aboriginal people of Australia have similar stories from their Dreamtime mythologies. And so I was going to basically, in the world of this story, have it that as these elements are combined over time, the sentiences and the aliveness of all the things were combined as well into larger and larger consciousnesses, and became powerful beings. And some of these beings were airplanes and buildings. And I'm like, what? And a Romeo and Juliet-like story with sort of Greek god-like tones would have taken place, involving buildings and airplanes. That was this idea I had. Man, I like weird books. I like to write weird books. I think I could have pulled it off, and I'm not entirely sure that idea is abandoned. But I don't know. I've been working on nonfiction stuff for so long. Fiction would be good. I'm going to do NaNoWriMo this November and knock out a novel I've had an idea for, kind of sci-fi novel. I have this great connection with my older brother that I've kind of never used. I should write something that his agent could do something with. Anyway, but it won't be the one I just talked about. It's going to be this one called Earth is an Egg. I wrote it once for a past NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month every November. 50,000 words, knock out a 50,000 word draft in a month. It's kind of a fun challenge. But I lost that old draft, but I generated a lot of good ideas. So I'm going to do a lot more preparation. That's my advice for anyone doing that, is do a lot of preparation. Don't just wing it. I mean, I got some interesting things out of winging it, but I didn't get a done manuscript. I got a 50,000 word rush job, Okay, books. We found a lost memoir. I've been working the front desk at my old high school. The lady in charge back there, it's her old school too. I'm class of 98, she was class of 90. Oh my gosh. It's so weird. And a bunch of other people are around that probably were there also. Imagine going back to your old high school. It's like a dream. It's like a weird dream. I do sometimes feel like I'm trapped in some cosmic eddy, some weird little cul-de-sac